Good morning. Prayers, please. Honorable Chair, I rise to report that a quorum does exist for the Special Select Committee to commence business.
Thank you so very much, Secretary. Good morning. Good morning, honorable members, council witness. Can we quickly look at the agenda and adopt it? Can anyone volunteer to move for the adoption of the agenda? Good. It has been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for today. Good morning, Ms. Bensouda. Thank you, and welcome again for your final day. Let me put it that way, final day. I'm not too sure. Maybe council will.
Sorry, Honorable Chair. The witness's mic is not on. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was just offline. Thank you. So we've stopped somewhere yesterday. Quickly, I'll have to hand you over to council for continuation from where we stopped yesterday, and possibly we will be able to finish today. I'm not too sure, but the witness said we can stay until 10 o'clock at night.
Definitely.
To be able to finish. So we'll endeavor. Council, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Mrs. Bensouda, and welcome back to the National Assembly.
Good morning.
Yes, I am picking up from where my co-counsel stopped yesterday. I don't foresee it being a long session. The members of the committee did not ask questions yesterday, so today is mostly their day. But just to pick up, like I said, from where my co-counsel stopped, yesterday you spoke about investigations within the country and outside the jurisdiction of this country. And you had mentioned that the commission did have to look into or visit other countries, such as Senegal, the US, and Morocco. Now, my question is, were there other countries considered, or were these 3 countries the only ones that the commission and the investigation team and even the office of the council deemed were the only ones necessary to visit for investigation?
Thank you, Council. Other countries were considered. There was an investigation, and the trails led to other countries as well. But there were budget constraints on the part of government, and also, really, when you investigate in other countries, there's a lot of groundwork first that you have to do, and you have to have some kind of cooperation from sister countries in order to really make a headway. So it was not possible. 1, time constraint. 2, resources. So you'll find out from the report that recommendation was made for the investigations to continue. They were supposed to continue anyway, because that was part of the High Court process.
Very well. And from the reports of the commission submitted to the president, we can see that countries like Switzerland were specifically mentioned, that the government should continue to follow up with the investigations commenced by the commission with regards to assets or accounts that are either associated or belong to the former president that are believed to be domiciled there. But apart from countries like Switzerland, were there any other countries that came to mind that maybe perhaps the Office of Counsel rather, did propose to the Commission that these countries should be visited for investigative purposes. I understand the constraints when it came to budget for the Commission and on the part of the government as well, but were there other places that were considered but could not have? And if you can just perhaps name these places.
Offhead, no, I cannot remember. But whatever was considered is reported.
Okay.
It will be in the report by the Commission.
Okay. All right. So when it came to the proposal of going overseas, of course, for assets that, for example, in the US, it was a bit, I wouldn't say maybe perhaps to the general public, but it was something that was a bit obvious that the president had an asset in the US. And like it's obvious to all of us that he had assets all over the country. It's also obvious that perhaps there would be something in Morocco, and that is, I believe, that would be why the Commission would visit these places, and also everything that was done was reflected in the reports. Like the recommendations made, like I mentioned, Switzerland and the accounts there have been mentioned, and other countries mentioned in the report. Is there perhaps maybe places that Council had proposed that were not considered in the Commission, by the Commission rather, and maybe not reflected in the reports perhaps?
I cannot remember that. But as part of the visit to US, it was not only about assets. These were embassies, and there were lots of transactions that had taken place from the US office, the embassy office. And it didn't make sense to be asking them to send files and calling them. They did one, I think a staff did give evidence, but it was easier to send a mission for them to review all the files in the embassy.
And their account.
Yes, that was much easier. That was the reason why. It was not only to pursue or find out whether they were assets. But I can't remember. It's been 6 years. I can't remember offhand.
Okay.
Yeah, can't remember.
All right. I believe that is all I had, just to clarify further when it came to the overseas investigations. The other one, what I want us to discuss next, was touched on briefly by you in an answer to Council. And I believe it's important to follow up. A group or two groups, the Honorable Chair of the then JANNEH Commission refers to as the Americans, or referred to as the Americans in his testimony here, is when we probed further, unfortunately, he could not remember the names of these organizations. But when the investigations team of this committee did its work, we found out, and from other testimonies, that these Americans that the chair referred to, FTI, the forensic accounting firm, not to be confused with FTI, the hotel management group. And then the second one being the Department of Homeland Security under the US Department of State for Treasury. So my question here now is, these two organizations or these two groups, which one of them visited the Commission of Inquiry first? If you can remember.
No, I can't remember the sequence.
Okay, the sequence, that's fine. But let's talk about the Department of Homeland Security first. What was the purpose of the visit? Did the Office of the Council engage with the personnel from this department during their time at the Commission?
The Department of State, the Homeland Security, it was a bilateral visit arranged through government. The Commission had no authority or certainly no reach
Okay.
to arrange any meeting with another government. So they were actually, if I recollect, they came to some bilateral arrangement, but the purpose of their visit was to assist the commission, and they spent 5 days. The commission had generated thousands of records, and assistant to the Gambia government, the commission, through the Gambia government, to digitize the commission records. And they spent about 5 days. They brought their own machines and digitized all the records. So at least the records that were generated up to that date, mainly the exhibits and reports. So the exhibits, a soft copy of provided, I think, was submitted. It's mentioned as part of the annexure, I think, appendix.
Yes.
Yes, so that's what they did. They assisted. And obviously also there were discussions about president's assets in America, but the main purpose was to help in the digitization, and they came and they went to Ghana.
Okay. All right. I know you said you cannot recall the sequence in which they arrived from the other group or the date in particular. Was this towards the end? Can you recall? Did they come towards the end and help digitize everything that the commission had, or was this towards the?
They came media, I think, in 2017, 2018.
Okay.
Media.
Okay.
Around August 2017.
All right.
August, September.
Okay.
A major part of the work had been done. I would say about 75, 80%. We had a few tidying up, mainly relating to properties.
Okay.
And as far as corporations are concerned, I think NAWEC was done last, or GAM Petroleum, one of them.
Okay.
So, but after they left, then records of the National Records Office came and scanned all the rest of the documents. They also came to the commission, and they scanned all the records that were left.
Okay, so they helped in completing the scanning.
Yeah, National Records Office, yes.
I was going to ask, because you had mentioned earlier that it was very helpful to have it was easier to have the exhibits and documents scanned.
It would have been much more difficult. Sorry.
Yes, and I believe it would have been also helpful because yesterday you mentioned that towards the end of the commission's work, you as council had to prepare briefs now and submit to the commissioners. I would imagine that these documents would also form part of the briefs and be helpful. Very well. When the Department of Homeland Security came to scan the documents or the exhibits, did they bring their own equipment to use?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as you know, did they leave this equipment behind, or did they take it with them when they were leaving?
They didn't certainly leave it with us.
So
I
didn't get that.
As far as I can remember, they didn't leave it with any equipment at the commission.
Okay.
But they might have donated something. I remember vaguely talk about equipment, but it certainly was not donated to. I can't remember equipment being donated to the commission by them. I know National Records Office came and completed the work they had started.
They had started. Okay. All right. And okay, I have another question with regards to documents, but maybe perhaps we speak about FTI first. I mentioned that earlier that in investigations that we've learned that a forensic accounting firm called FTI were also part of visitors that the commission had to aid in the work that was being done. Can you just tell this committee how the visit came about to the commission and how helpful the work they did was?
FTI, I can't, how did FTI, I don't think they had any connection with this Homeland Security.
No,
There's no connection.
no.
FTI,
Maybe let me clarify. When the chair testified, he calls them the Americans, but definitely from our investigations and from testimonies of other witnesses, they are not linked at all, FTI and the Homeland Security Group. Yes. But please continue.
FTI, I can't remember how they came, whether through the ministry or whether they came on a visit, because a lot of, well, not a lot, but during the period, there were organizations that took an interest in this whole process of the commission over the former president's assets. So we did have delegations who would come to the ministry and they would call on one to meet the commission and so on. One of them was the Ford Foundation. Ford, what's it called? Ford Foundation, I believe.
Yes, the Ford Foundation.
Yes, and we were trying to get them to train some of the investigators in forensic investigation and to pay for it at least, and other support. That's what I recollect. And FTI, I can't remember how they came, but they were an independent group, and they had forensic experts. So I believe Ford agreed to finance them to help us in analyzing some of the reports of some of the accounts of some of the corporations. And they specifically worked on, I think, NAWEC and GAM Petroleum.
Okay. We, from your submissions, we do see a draft report from FTI, but perhaps you might have a copy with you there, but it looks incomplete. The report from.
No, I don't have a copy. I've given you what I have.
Okay,
now.
then I have it here, but it looks incomplete. However, we've seen from what we have of the report, we've seen that it's a draft, and two, they mainly investigated or helped analyze the records or do a study of two enterprises. That is NAWEC and GAM Petroleum. As far as you know, are there other institutions that they helped in the analysis of doing forensic analysis of
No, that's what I can remember.
Okay.
NAWEC and GAM Petroleum.
Just NAWEC and GAM Petroleum.
That's what I can remember, yes.
Okay. You mentioned the Ford Foundation also made a visit. Did they visit before FTI? And that's how FTI was arranged? How the visit of FTI and the work they did was arranged?
I think they, around the same time, FTI was offering their services. Obviously, Gambia government didn't have the money to pay any international forensic experts. And so Ford was offering assistance. And I think then the two were connected. And I think Ford, if I recollect, Ford agreed to pay for their services. But after the report from NAWEC and GAM Petroleum, on NAWEC and GAM Petroleum, we discontinued the services of FTI. So I think that's what I remember happened. But they are not related. So Ford Foundation helped in financing FTI's work. Right, that's, I think, what happened.
Okay. Honorable Chair, I'd like to stop here for now and hand the witness to the committee for the committee to ask its questions.
Very well. Thank you, Lead Counsel. At this point, Mrs. Bensouda, the committee members will take questions for clarity. And I would allow Honorable Chief Sir to take the floor. Sir, you have the floor.
It never happened.
No. Anybody who knows about the international financial system would know that you cannot send anyone to go and locate anybody's account anywhere, outside your own country. There are ways of doing it, and it's bilateral mostly. Or you hire perhaps international experts. But to be honest, um, if I recollect rightly, these things were discussed, but finally it was left to the government.
So
It was way beyond what
I
we
want
could do.
clarity. A witness came here and said that someone was contacted by you in the Caribbean to the extent of you paying that person $5,000 for that person to locate the account for you. How true is that?
It's absolute rubbish.
Thank you.
$5,000 from whose money? My
From
money?
your pocket.
Really, honestly, that's so ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Thank you. Mrs. Bensouda, when it comes to the issue of FTI, who introduced FTI to the commission?
I can't really remember how they came over. I can't remember.
Were there any correspondence between you and FTI, the group? Were there any correspondence between two of you?
Well, when they offer their service, there might be. I'll check my emails, but I can't remember. I can't really. It's 7 years. I have done so many things in these past 7 years. The commission was, I can't remember.
A witness
Who brought
also
the
came
FTI?
to say that FTI was introduced to the commission by you through Alpha Capital, and then you are the liaison officer between FTI and the commission. How true is that?
Let me start with the one.
Hmm?
Well, let me start with the last one. Liaison between FTI and the commission.
Yes, FTI and the commission, because they will write to you and then you copy to the commission.
FTI were investigators.
Yes.
They investigated and submitted a report, which was submitted to the commission. I don't know what he means by.
Before their
They
engagement,
were on the ground.
before their engagement with the commission, they didn't just come and start. They went through a correspondence before the commission accepted them. According to what we heard was the guy Alpha introduced FTI to you, and you were the one who introduced FTI to the commission members, commission members.
Mr. Alpha Barry.
Yes, was the one who introduced FTI to you.
He was giving evidence if he did that. To be honest, I can't remember. FTI was not that important. They were forensic experts. They said they were forensic. We needed expertise because we were working with police investigators who did not have the relevant expertise. We were working with the Auditor General staff. Also, they didn't have that expertise, the forensic expertise necessary to analyze accounts that we identified needed to be analyzed. So FTI's coming was quite fortuitous because we needed expertise. But now, who introduced FTI? I don't know. I can't remember how they came. That's interesting. I thought they came through the ministry, but perhaps Mr. Barry can shed light. But I can't really remember how they came. I know Ford Foundation must have come through the ministry. That's what I can remember. Homeland Security definitely through the ministry, but FTI, I'll have to check whether I have any emails concerning FTI. But what is the thing about FTI? They're just forensic experts. They analyze the records. They have nothing to do with asset. So I don't see the importance. Perhaps I can be enlightened. What is the issue that's being investigated concerning FTI?
No, the issue here is, the way they were paid and the amount they were paid, for me, I thought that they could have even get or tap those resources within the Gambian context to look at people who can do the same work that FTI was doing. And then the amount that I was mentioned that they were paid on an hourly basis looked to be on the high side. So the way they were paid.
Who introduced them, I'll check. If I have something. How they were paid? They were paid as international investigators. I can't remember whether it was hourly. Certainly was much higher than, it might have been hourly, but I have to check that as well. There's anyone in the Gambia who could have done what they did? No, there was nobody in the Gambia who could have done what they did. We have two international accounting firms, DT Associates and PKF. They don't have any forensic experts. We don't have forensic experts within the police. We don't have forensic experts at the time within the FIU. So there was nobody qualified in the Gambia on what they were required to do.
And they were paid by the Gambia government?
No.
They were paid by who?
They were paid by the Ford Foundation. They were not paid by, Gambia government didn't have money to pay for so many things. They could not. You know, they were not, they were certainly not paid by Gambia government. They were paid by Ford.
So the negotiation was between the FTI and the Ford. They made negotiation.
They would pay them directly. They paid them directly. I can't remember the negotiation, but they would pay them directly. And perhaps if it was mentioned yesterday, I would have gone and checked whether I had anything on my email about FTI. I can't remember. I didn't think it was. Well,
in your statement on number 13, paragraph 13.
Paragraph 13 of
your statement.
Okay.
The one you signed.
Yes.
With regards to these companies, the international companies involving millions of dollars, as mentioned by you.
International companies.
Yes.
Sorry, my statement.
Switzerland-based firm, and then the
Sorry, which statement is it? The cover letter or the one I made here?
No, the one you signed. The one you did with the investigator.
Okay. I'm trying to see my copy. Yes, paragraph
13.
The commission's reports contain.
Yes, on those companies.
Yes.
Were they taken to court or not?
When we made findings, that's for a question is for the Attorney General. The findings is in the report. That's MGI in relation to Gamtel International Gateway. They were managers of the Gamtel International Gateway.
What Gamtel is?
So findings and recommendations you are made in relation to them. It's for, I don't know whether they were, it's in the report of the commission. So it was for the government to follow up. So I don't know what happened. But my understanding was that, at least from what I read, that they were taken to court. But the minister, I don't want to give evidence before the commission based on rumor. But I think perhaps it's a question that should be put to the Ministry of Justice.
Ms. Bensouda, I don't want to take you back to that question, but just for clarity purpose, with regards to your support staff from your farm who were with you during the time of the commission, who was responsible of their payments? Who was paying them? Were they paid through Ministry of Justice, or were they paid by your firm?
They were paid by my firm. I was the only person paid by government. 450,000. I paid all my support staff.
Even when
and all the lawyers.
When they are traveling, no 100 for them?
No, when they are traveling. When they travel outside the country, it was Ministry of Justice.
So when they travel outside the country,
the Ministry of Justice.
the ministry will pay.
Yes, but internally, no honorarium. Nobody no lawyer that I brought to the commission was paid anything other than what I paid, what my firm paid them.
Because my concern here is they were not contracted by the ministry. You were the one contracted by the ministry. So they were,
Yes.
they were your support staff. You were paying them on a monthly basis. When it comes to honorarium, I think it would have been the same thing also to be paid by you, but not from government accounts.
They were not paid any honorarium.
They were paying when they are traveling
My
outside the
lawyers-
Gambia. When they are,
No,
they
when
are
they-
per diem, sorry.
They were working for the commission. They were joining a team of investigators going to abroad. It was not part of my terms of reference to be paying expenses, investigation expenses. I was being paid my fees, but the government was supposed to pay for all expenses, including my computers, including giving me paper, and including all the expenses of the investigation, not me.
Including their per diem when they travel outside the
Of
Gambia.
course. Nobody can reasonably expect the way we lawyers work. We agree on a fee and we charge our expense, our costs to the clients. For the commission, I took up a lot of costs because it was unnecessary to pursue them. Gambia government did not have money. So to pay for my staff, their salaries, and that was the responsibility. My firm paid for them because I was the one who was contracted, as you rightly put. So as far as the fee was concerned, that was all costs. It was at the expense of the Gambia government. I hope that the distinction is clear.
Yeah, that's
No lawyer bears the cost of a client.
okay.
So if you instruct me and I go to court and I file your papers, you pay me my fees, the filing fees, every other expense, calling witnesses, any other expense, the client has to pay. So let me refer back to because it's, so to expect that I would recommend that a team of investigators goes abroad, and because it included my staff, I should then pay for that staff. I think it's unreasonable, to say the least. But anyway, I did not pay for per diem. I did not pay tickets. The Gambia government paid for all expenses of investigation, without exception.
So in your agreement, there was something like this is to be sold out by government, and this is to be sold out by me, because it's just like you mentioned, that no lawyer pays for the client's expenses. But I think also when you are charging, you charge including everything to the client to say you have to pay 1 million. From that 1 million, all costs comes from the 1 million, or do you charge and then the other things that are coming up are to be paid by the client?
Just one moment. Let me look at my engagement letter. That's very interesting. Firstly, let me say that the Commission did not have a budget. Engagement letter. Okay. The issue of expenses doesn't seem to have been addressed in my engagement letter, which is quite a significant oversight. But let me just explain. The Commission did not have, as far as I know, the Commission did not have any budget for investigation. So any expenses regarding investigation was borne by the state. As far as overseas travel was concerned, I would write to the Attorney General and recommend that further investigation was needed in a particular country, and I would, in that recommendation, I would indicate who I was recommending to go on the trip, and it was up to the Ministry of Justice it was up to the Ministry of Justice to approve or disapprove. And the Ministry of Justice, I believe, would write to the Travels Committee. And these people were paid for from the Travels Committee. So it was not as if I was given a packet of money and a budget was keeping that from which I was meeting expenditure. One. Secondly, I did not dictate to the ministry. I would just write a
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Bensouda. Technical, the witness's mic seems to be going in and out. Perhaps, please help.
Okay. Thank you. I was explaining how this traveled, the 3 different missions that were sent, how these were arranged. With regard to all 3 of them, without exception, I would write to the ministry, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and recommend that further investigation was needed. I will give the reasons why, I'll justify it, then I'll recommend the team that I was also suggesting or recommending should go on the mission. So it was just a recommendation. It was up to the Ministry of Justice to say approve or disapprove. So they approved and the teams went, including for each mission a lawyer. And so for US, 1 lawyer from my firm went, 1 lawyer from the Ministry of Justice. For Morocco, a lawyer from the Ministry of Justice. For Dakar, a lawyer from my chambers. But this was up to the government to say yes or no. So that is how it was organized. Certainly, if they had said, we will not fund your lawyer, then my lawyer would not go, because I certainly was not going to finance a staff.
There's no objection from the government. They approved.
They approved it. And I think these missions were financed from the government travel budget. They were financed from the government travel budget. That's what I recollect.
So the investigation team was working directly under you?
Investigation team, they're working with me. They were not working under me. And that is the distinction. Investigators are independent. You know, even police investigators are independent. They are staff, of course, they belong to this staff are police investigators from the Inspector General of Police Office. He provided them. They worked with me, not under me.
But they were reporting to you directly?
Yes, that's in the report, that they reported to me, meaning when they prepared their report, it was submitted to me and I reviewed it. So they were not reporting to me in terms of their movements. I had no control over where they went, what they did. All I was interested in is that they were assigned, you investigate this subject matter, they would investigate it.
Assigned by who?
They would assign, the commission actually assigned, I sometimes assigned, but the commission, we had meetings and areas were identified. And when they brought their report, initially they brought their reports from the police, because the police had started investigations on these topics, and FIU also had started investigations. So initially they brought their police reports. But where no investigation actually had started, then because we have a TOR, so we assign, like would say, okay, GAMTEL, this investigator would take care of all investigations relating to GAMTEL. the NPC, and other police. So the work was distributed between them. Distribution of that work was primarily by me. But then we also had meetings with the commissioners, and they had an input sometimes.
So after their assignments, they report back to you?
Yes, they brought their written report. That will be brought to me, and I will review it.
And then put your inputs in it, or?
Yes, and I would tell them, no, I cannot put input in terms of putting facts in. I could say to them, no, this is not adequate. On this issue, it's not adequate. You have to do further investigation. So we had discussions on it. So it was a dynamic. We would go through, have meetings. I would say, okay, this one is not enough. This witness you have mentioned, but there is no statement. Have you taken a statement? We need the statement from this witness. We need this witness's evidence. Follow this, that sort of thing. So if you know the process of investigation and court, how lawyers and investigators work, that's how we work.
Because our concern here is from a layman.
Okay.
As the moment somebody is giving directive to an individual, and then after the assignment, the person will come back with a report. You look at the report to say A, B, C, and D needs adjustment. You have to go further on these issues. It's like they were under you.
Oh. My relationship with the investigators, Honorable Sir, is what is described in the report of the chairman. I don't have anything to add or take away from that. They were not under me. And I explained yesterday, the relationship is the same as the relationship between the Ministry of Justice office with the police. The police investigate, they are investigators that report to the IGP. Nevertheless, when they submit a report to the Ministry of Justice for someone to be taken to court and prosecuted, Ministry of Justice can send back the report and say that this report is not adequate. There are gaps. Look at this issue. We have to prove A, B, and C. So go and do further investigation and bring back the report. That does not mean the investigators report, the Ministry of Justice head investigations. No, I'm not an investigator. I was not trained to be an investigator, but we are lawyers and we know what the law would require. If you say A has committed an offense, we know what we need to prove to show that A has committed an offense. Now, if you say A has stolen money, I know we have to prove A, B, and C. So if I look at it and see there is no proof, I'll send it back and say, no, this is not enough. You have to bring evidence of this, evidence of that, evidence. You have to bring proof. You mentioned a witness. There is no statement. Go and take a, so that's supervising, perhaps. That's how the commission put it, and I accept that.
So you were supervising them?
I was supervising them, of course. I was supervising them.
So after everything, they send the report to you, or they send it to the ministry?
They send the report to me because the commission needed the report. So I have to look at the report. If it's adequate, I tender it as evidence before the commission. If it's not adequate, I'll tender part of it and say, well, you have to do more. So at the end of the day, the commission will look at everything to see whether there is sufficient proof of whatever the allegation is.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ben, for that clarity, because still you are only supervising what they were not working under you. You are only supervising them.
They were not working on the lawyers. Yeah. I was leading the team of lawyers, and that's why I am called lead counsel.
Yes.
As lawyers, we don't head. Okay. We don't head each other. Okay. All lawyers are equal, but there must be a lead. Even when you have a court case, you can take several lawyers, 3, 4, as many lawyers as you want. But you have to have a lead counsel.
Meaning he's the
most senior.
The senior among them to be responsible.
And that senior will coordinate the work. And they will meet and arrange who will speak, who will not speak. But the lead counsel will coordinate. And when you appear in court, lead counsel will stand up and say, I appear for the plaintiff or the defendant, and with me are, and you mention all the lawyers. It means you're leading, and that's why I'm called lead counsel. So the law, I was leading the lawyers that
the
were
lawyer.
working
Yes, you were the
with
one
them.
leading them.
But it doesn't mean I head it. In professional terms, the terms head, even lawyers under you can't really dictate to them. They have their professional opinion. You can differ from them and say, look, I don't agree with what you have said. Go and rewrite it. Let's look at it again. Go and look at that law until you come to some kind of understanding. It's a profession. Dictate to each other.
So it's like you were the captain of the team.
I was the captain of the team. That's a very good. Yes, but I took, because it's a contract. I had a contract engagement with government. I took responsibility. So if anything went wrong with it, I took responsibility because this was my personal contract.
Exactly.
But nevertheless, I was leading a team of lawyers, including state council. State council were part of my team, and they are not answerable to me. But as far as the work of the commission was concerned, I could direct them, go and do this, go and do that. But they're state council, they work for the government.
And the investigation also were part of your team also?
No, they were not.
Okay.
Investigation was its own team. They were individuals.
Okay.
One was from FIU. They were not even connected. One was different units from the police. They can go and report direct to the police. And as far as their movement was concerned, they'll come and say, we have to go to head office, we have to do this. But they were assigned a task. The task is go and investigate this issue and bring back a report. So
like when they come to the commission members, the chair was the lead, and then you have the other commissioner commission members under the chair.
Perhaps the chair was the captain.
The chair was the captain as a team. So the chair was the captain.
Perhaps we can say the chair was the captain.
Because I was trying to look at
But captain in the army, they can dictate. Do this, do that. The chair could not dictate to the commissioners. They were all independent.
Yes.
So he had to agree. At least there are 3 people. So if one at least agreed on an issue, then there was a decision. Just like this committee, we have a chair, but when you want to say something, you must address the chair first. Exactly. So the chair is our leader here. Yes. So the same thing applies to the commission members. The chair was the leader. The other commission members were under the chair. Exactly. So that organogram that the council introduced to you, and then you had issue about the organogram. So I think the chair could have been the lead, then followed by the council. Maybe on your position, you cannot be under the commission because you were a set of your own leading a team. The organogram should not have tried to build a structure of this reporting to that. You can do a functional organogram. Exactly. If you know about organograms, you can do a functional organogram. Showing functions rather than trying to build a hierarchy of this person being boss, that person's, it didn't work like that. That one was a hierarchy one. It should have been a functional one. It should have been a functional organogram. Thank you very much, Miss. I think this is all what I have for you for today, and then allow the chair to pass to my other party. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any honorable Fofana would now take the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, and welcome, Ms. Bensouda. I would start from where we stopped the previous time. And during your previous appearance, I did ask questions, with regards to the fee notes and whether they were presented to MOJ, in the letterhead of AB and Co.
Yes, they were.
Thank
you.
They
were presented on the letterhead of AB and Co.
That day it wasn't clear because
I checked.
You checked, yes. And currently I do have a copy of the fee note that came from the submission you made. So I would still need some little clarifications as to why a contract that was given to you in your personal capacity would make claims of fee notes in the letterhead of AB and Co.
Right. My law firm is a partnership, and we are 2 partners, and we have associates. All the other lawyers are called associates. Now, depending on the nature of, law, we work, when you are a professional lawyer, you actually take briefs as an individual, not as a law firm. So if you look at our Legal Practitioners Act, it says that when a lawyer does a document They can either endorse it themselves or use their farm. But the tradition actually is that when you brief a lawyer, when you ask a lawyer to do any work for you, we call it briefing a lawyer. That lawyer is being briefed in their personal capacity, because barristers work as individuals. They don't work as a group. So if you are assigning me legal work that is akin to litigation, akin to trial, you actually take me personally, the barrister personally. So it doesn't matter whether the barrister is operating in a firm. Now that's the professional aspect. When it comes to the money, I work for a firm and the firm pays me a salary. Of course, as a partner, at the end of the year, if we make profit, I get a percentage of the profit. Yeah, but as a partner working for the firm, I have a salary and that firm pays it. So everything I earn has to be brought to the firm. So the firm is the firm that bills, and when the firm bills, it doesn't mean when the bill is paid, the money is given to me. No, the firm has overheads. The farm has office rent costs, it has staff costs, it has light costs like any other company. So all those costs have to be deducted from the money that comes in. And it's the balance now that will form part of the surplus money and the profit of the farm. Now that we have a way of determining how partners are paid. So that is why the farm bills, because I work for a farm. Even though I was contracted individually, my contract with the farm is that all money has to come to the farm because I'm using the farm's resources. And so everything has to, that's why the farm bills. And this is understood, it's not a problem. It is understood, and that's why the Ministry of Justice accepted the fee notes with the letterhead of my firm, because this is what obtains. This is the procedure. So there is really, unless you want me to explain further.
Yes,
So
I would like you to explain further because
succinctly, I was engaged in my personal capacity, but I work for a firm. And if I earn any money, if I sign any contract, I have to have the approval of the firm. Without the approval, I cannot go ahead and take any work. So when I was contracted, I said, so it's in my letter, I consulted with my partner. The firm said I could go ahead and accept this job. I accepted it, but the money has to come to the firm. So the firm builds. And of course, the Ministry of Justice accepted it because that is quite normal.
Thank you for that clarity. I mean, Ms. Bensouda. I would just like more clarity because why am I asking this is because the other time you were asked, you did buttress on the fact that indeed the contract was given to you or the appointment was made in your individual capacity. And I could recall a member asked you about if there are implications whether the firm would be part of it, and you pointed to paragraph 4 of your engagement letter, which is very correct. So now in my mind, what I'm asking clarity for, of course it is known that you and the firm, you are two separate entities. So my question was going to be, how do you reconcile the norm of legal practice against that separate entity clause? And again, at the end of the day, how do you reconcile that paragraph 4? Yes. I guess you understand the question.
Yes, I think I do. Paragraph 4 is clear that I'm responsible. The firm is a legal entity. I'm responsible. It's quite clear that I will be responsible for anything that goes wrong. The fee note is just about the money. It has nothing to do with my responsibility as lead counsel. So I think we should try to separate the two. You know, I could have asked anyone, an agent, and say, well, can you submit an attorney? Could tell the ministry, look, I'll pay me through this person. You pay me, but I'm working for you. I mean, it's nothing extraordinary about it. You could be working for someone and say, well, can you pay my money to And as long as you authorize, they will pay it. So there is nothing extraordinary about it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bensouda. We'll leave that. In your engagements with Council Diba, you did make a reflection of the working relationship that existed in the JANNEH Commission. And then you also did indicate that there was a functional relationship.
There was
a functional relationship, you know, instead of a hierarchical one. But we had previous witnesses here, Ms. Ramatullah Sar and Ms. Abiose George. And it might interest you to note that what they presented before the committee was a hierarchical organogram where you have the commissioners and there is one among them who is more powerful among the equals, and then you will have the secretariat. Under the secretariat, you will have the lead counsel. Under the lead counsel, then you will have the investigation team, the legal team, and under the secretariat again, directly under the secretariat, you'll have the security and others. That seems to be at opposite with what you are saying. So my question would be, does issues of hierarchical relationship with regards to your work pose as challenges during your time at the JANNEH Commission?
Never. Everybody was clear as to what their responsibility was, as far as I'm concerned. And that is why the commission report, I'm surprised that any commissioner would come and describe a relationship that's different from what is in their report. This is their own report, and they have explained how things work. So I'd urge the members of the committee, I'd urge you to read the report. What is in the report is what obtained. This is the report of the commissioners. So I'm surprised. As regards the secretary and any other person, perhaps they didn't quite understand. The second secretary came after we had almost completed most of the work. And you did show me a letter where I wrote, she said to her, explaining how things work. So perhaps she didn't quite understand. But no commissioner can come after they've submitted the report and say something different from what is in the report. So there was no hierarchical relationship. It's completely functional. The commission was the commission. Their role was the most important. And it's entirely in the law. They hear the evidence in public hearing, and they review the evidence, they write their reports. I am the lawyer. Let's start with the investigators. There are a team of investigators. This is in the commission, the TOR issued by the president, that the IGP will provide investigators. And there were a team of investigators, and the investigators investigated, presented their investigation to me as counsel. I reviewed it. And if it met the required standard, I submitted it to the commissioners. So there were three functions: investigation, legal counsel, commission. So these are the three. Now, as regards the secretariat, which supports the commission, one can say there is a hierarchical relationship, perhaps, because you have the secretary, assistant secretary, you had clerks, you had units. Perhaps there is a structure there, but that's not my unit, and I really did not pay particular attention to that, what was going on in terms of relationship between secretary and the others. It wasn't my business. That I worked with the secretary. I never work with assistant secretary when there is a secretary. Now, as far as commission is concerned, they were separate from me. I presented evidence to them. Just pretty much when I submit, they can say, well, reject, accept, admitted. Can you explain? Can you address us? Can you give us a brief as happened? But I'm independent. They can direct me as to how I do it. So I don't report to the commission. There is no hierarchical relationship between me and the commissioners. As regards the investigators, they're independent. They go and do their investigations. Then I tell them, if it's adequate, I accept it, which I submit. If it's not, I tell them this is not. We had meetings. At the meetings, I would provide guidance. that this is not court, this is a commission, and this is what we need from you. That is my legal input into the work they were doing. But I was not their boss. I could not tell them what to do and what not to do in terms of outside of anything that related to a matter they were investigating. But in relation to a matter they investigate, I can say, well, look, this your report is not good enough. I can't submit this to the commissioners. There is no evidence. There are no facts. You know, send it back. You have to do this. If you don't understand, come back. Then I'll tell them this is the law, and this is what, if you reach a conclusion, you know, in every investigation, the investigator would reach a conclusion. In every investigation file, they reach a conclusion. But that conclusion, if it's not supported by the evidence in the file, I'll send it back and say, well, this is your conclusion, it's not supported. Perhaps you should look at this area. Perhaps you can look at this. Well, I'll call you and we have a meeting. This is the law, and this is what you should be looking for. You know, so that's not hierarchical. So I'm trying to explain again, but really everything has been explained in the commission report. And I think that is the official legal report. What witnesses can say anything depending on their understanding or their perception, and their understanding may be wrong. But this report, presented to the president and accepted, the report is the report that should be considered, taken into account by this committee, nothing else.
Very well, Ms. Bensouda. Perhaps can you make references to the report
The
as
report,
a guide to the committee?
yes,
which,
certainly. Volume 1 of the report, it's volume 1 and 2 are together. And volume 1 is the general introduction, and it's from page 5 to page 40. Okay. So it's quite comprehensive, and you'll find at page 10, from page 10, method of work. Page 10 is entitled Method of Work, and it sets out from page 10 to 11 how the commission operated. 10 to 11, sorry, more than that actually, page.
No, very well.
Yes, so you'll see A to F, paragraph A to paragraph F. Okay. How the commission operated. So anything else is just really.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. I think that's well understood. Yes. And that takes me to the other one, because the people who came were part of the commission. So the committee just wants to have understanding from different perspectives. That's why my last question on that would be, can you recall any meeting where you might be present and then challenges were highlighted, and one of it would be with regards to relationships, workflows, and in particular, trying to depict a hierarchical relationship within the setup of the JANNEH Commission?
IT, please help the witness.
It was an 18-month period. We didn't think it would last up 18 months, but it's amazing how much we accomplished within 18 months. And there were many meetings. Now, meetings in which tempers flared, there might have been, but really, I can't remember the details. I mean, for me, I have headed institutions for the past 40 years. My brain doesn't keep, when issues arise, addressed, and we move on. So I don't really keep those things in my head. Little problems, they're expected. We're human.
That's very well.
We're human, they're expected. But they were not, if they were so critical, I would remember. But nothing that was critical, to be honest. Nothing.
Thank you for that submission. In your earlier submission to the previous question, you did made indications, or what I would like to say preempted my follow-up question, when you said when investigators do their investigation and they are ready, they will write conclusions. And then from those conclusions, you will determine the merit of what they are bringing in so that you can advise the commissioners. That takes me back to your submission to the lead counsel yesterday when you were trying to explain section 204 of the Constitution and indicate that findings of the commission, most or adverse ones, could be somehow equal to rulings of what?
A judgment.
A judgment of
says judgment of the High Court.
Of the High Court. And as such, you have the responsibility to make a balance of what? Probability. And I kind of believe in this case that balance of probability, you normally draw it from the conclusions that are made by the investigation team. So here, what I'll be indulging on is perhaps if you can enlighten this committee further.
Okay. Thank you. I'm happy to do that. The Constitution, as I said in section 204, provides that it's an addition to the commission making findings and recommendations. They have to put on notice anyone against whom an adverse finding has been made. Adverse meaning a finding that will affect that person legally, one way or the other. Maybe it's a conclusion that this person is responsible for, let's say, $100,000 that could not be found. Meaning, you are actually saying this person, there should be a legal process perhaps to recover this money from this person. Or we have reached a conclusion that what this person did amounted to misappropriation of funds. Or any adverse finding that this person knew, for instance, that the president was doing this and it was wrong and he was complicit. So these are all adverse findings. So if we make that sort of finding, we have to send a notice at the moment we are submitting our report to the president. At the same time, we have to send a notice to that person that, look, the commission has made an adverse finding. So this is what the section provides. And that person has 90 days to appeal to the Gambia Court of Appeal against the adverse finding. And in that appeal, the report of the commission on that matter will be regarded as a judgment of the court. Now, when it comes to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal looks at the report as a judgment and looks at the adverse findings. And what the Court of Appeal, we have certain standards of when it comes to accepting or in the courts. I'm trying to explain it in layman's language. The court applies certain standards in accepting whether you have proven a case or not proven a case. When it comes to civil cases, that is non-criminal cases, there is what is called a balance of probability. The court will say, well, I have looked at all the evidence, reviewed all the evidence, and on a balance of probabilities, I think the matter is proven. The conclusion is correct from the evidence. That is civil. But if it's criminal, like you said, somebody stole something, you have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. So the court will say, well, I've looked at the evidence, but I'm not satisfied that this evidence is sufficient to prove this matter beyond reasonable doubt. So what was my role? My role when the investigators investigate and they make a conclusion which gives rise to a civil wrong, a civil claim, right? I would have to look at what they have brought, the evidence, the witnesses. Why are they saying that? Why are they reaching this conclusion? If thinking like, we lawyers, we try to anticipate what the judge wants. And I would say, look, sorry, what you have here is not sufficient to prove what you are saying. Or what you are saying is the wrong conclusion. I have read it, but my conclusion, the conclusion I have reached from the evidence you have provided is different. So please go and look at it again. So there's this balance of probabilities for civil cases, proof on a balance of probabilities. In criminal cases, proof beyond reasonable doubt. So my job was legal. So I cannot just take any evidence, any statement, and throw it at the commissioners. You know, I can submit everything, but at the end of the day, I had to also write a brief and say, well, these are the evidence. This is what the evidence points to. I leave it to you commissioners to decide. So we wrote briefs, not on everything, because the accounts that didn't need brief. The commissioners, some of them were experts, so they looked at the accounts. But on other matters, we would look at it, we would write briefs and send it. So that was my role. So if you understand it in that way, you could see the relationship between counsel and the investigation. And that is how it worked. So I hope that helps.
It does, and I think it did at a very right time, at a time when Council Deba is coming in. And indeed, you've provided lectures today.
Oh,
and very good ones.
Thank you.
Huh?
Actually, I'm a lecturer at the law school.
Yes, you did. Because, I mean, you in fact answered the second question I was going to ask, whether those conclusions from the investigation team are always provided to the commissioners in totality. You did indicate in your response that you will give them everything, but again, you will provide a brief to say what needs to be done. Am I right in that?
The investigation reports. I can't now remember whether the conclusion of the investigator will be given to the commissioners. I don't think the conclusions were given. I think we submitted all the statements, all the evidence that the investigators brought, and some of them were, the investigators had to write an affidavit, and we had to submit it, but the conclusions of the investigations were not submitted. It's just like a court. You don't submit the conclusion of the investigator. The premise of what you submit to the commission is what the investigations themselves, not the conclusion, because the investigators are not judges or lawyers. They're not qualified lawyers. But you put forward the evidence, and of course there's always a theory. You know, we have legal theory behind what we do. The evidence leads to something. So our terms of reference guided us. Okay, and basically you are investigating an asset. Did the president own this asset? Did he purchase it? How did he come by this asset? Some of it is straightforward, but you'll be surprised that in relation, perhaps not surprised, as far as movable assets are concerned, they were not registered in the president's name. He controlled them like vehicles. They were not registered at all. But you could investigate, like the team that went to US were able to investigate and came with records to show that certain vehicles were purchased through the embassy, but using funds, state funds, that were then sent to the embassy. Vehicles were purchased, but these vehicles were then transferred to KGI. So that's the trail that you look at. So what is the theory? The theory is that, you know, the president purchased these vehicles from public funds. So the investigators have to show why they say the president purchased this vehicle from public funds. So they follow the funds and come to a conclusion. And then we present that, because that's the crux of the investigation. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Bensouda. I just have one question on the FTI consulting. In your response to either Council Aji or the honorable member, you did indicate that the specialized skills they had was not present locally. But that differs from the response we had from one of the commissioners who was before us, who in fact indicated that at the end of the day, there were gaps in the analysis they made on the accounts of both NAWEC and GAM Petroleum. And that commissioner fervently believed that the work could have been done locally. So I'm just trying to reconcile the different views that are coming from the same commission?
Let me say that at the end, the quality of the work that FTI did was not as we expected. And that is why they were discontinued, because after all, they just did two. Gamtel, not Gamtel, they did Gam Petroleum and NAWEC. So we were not satisfied. I wasn't satisfied with the quality of their work, and I did have sessions with them and meetings with. I think the FTI people were. I think they were from the Caribbean. I can't even remember now, but I'll check. But I had meetings with them, and I wasn't quite satisfied that they were useful. They were handicapped in a way because they also didn't have access to the information they wanted. If I remember rightly, that was part of the problem, but I wasn't satisfied. So if in terms of quality, yes, our expectations were higher than what we saw. Now, whether now they were forensic experts, I didn't know of any. And certainly no commissioner brought to my attention any forensic investigator, forensic accountant in Gambia at the time. That was one. Secondly, I don't think there was any budget for paying forensic experts at all. The only reason Ford Foundation agreed to pay was because these people were international and they were charging international rates. So we said, okay, these people can be useful to us. They can be useful to us because we certainly need a forensic expert to go through to the reports. And that is why we said with Ford Foundation, there are this team of experts that have offered their services. Gambia government cannot afford to pay them. So we applied to Ford Foundation. I think it was Ford Foundation. Ford Foundation agreed to pay. The Ministry of Justice was, of course, part of the decision-making process. But as I said, they paid for what they did, and we stopped it because we did not think the quality or warranted for them to continue. That's the way I would put it.
Yes.
But the Ford Foundation did not provide any resources that I know of to the commission. Certainly not to me. Nobody provided resources to my office. So when it comes to money, it has to be through the government. The commission did not have power to ask anyone to give them money directly. No.
Yes. Then I think then certainly we can agree that the view of the commission was clear with regards to the performance of FTI.
Yes.
That their performance fell short of expectations.
Fell short of expectations. I'll accept that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Then let's look at the sales of cattle.
Yes.
In your statement, there's a place that you indicate that your advice was for the sales of certain items, including the cattle, be handled by the sheriff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Initially, that was my advice.
And is it also correct to say that the other commissioners were not aware of that advice? Will it be correct to say that?
No, definitely not correct. Definitely not correct. We had discussions about the cattle, and I wasn't keen on. I think the secretary wanted to do it, thought he had the expertise to do it. I wasn't keen on that. One, because I did not want any conflict with the courts. That was the early days, and these were court orders. So I think there were options. We discussed it, I think, at length. Finally, it was decided, the commission ordered, and I didn't have any problem with that, that the secretary could do it together with Gilma, as they are called. So I helped in drafting, my office, my team helped in drafting the application to the court for the commission, that is the secretary and Gilma. And of course, you have the order, it is worded. And for me to be, for for me to be consulted in the process. It was sent to the courts, and the court said no. Well, the court said approved the order, but buried it and said, sorry, I'm trying to use legal language, but the court granted the order for the cattle to be sold, but said the sheriff should do it. That's fine, because I had at some point said that the sheriff should do it. But I think this was during discussion. Now, to say that nobody is aware, it's been 7 years, but I recollect that that was my view. However, nobody, I think, afterwards was happy about the sheriff and the cattle, because we didn't get a report and there were rumors, but I don't peddle in rumors. So when it came to the vehicles, the issue of going to court, nobody was keen on going back to the courts, because, you know, the cattle thing was not clear to us at the commission, how the sheriff handled it, because we did not get a report. So, so the issue of sheriff was laid to rest. But I definitely do remember that I would have, at the early stage, preferred the matter to go to the sheriff rather than be done by the secretary.
But on hindsight, would you have done it differently? Perhaps maybe let me add context to that.
It was not my decision in hindsight even. I mean, it's not my decision.
Yeah.
The commission issued an order, and that didn't include the sheriff. And the order went to the court. The court decided the sheriff should do it. No, we couldn't have done anything else.
You couldn't have gone back to the courts?
In respect of?
I mean, seeing how best they can set aside that order or revisit the order itself to ensure that there are certain controls in it that would include the commission itself.
No, that's not how it works. The commission is parallel. It has nothing to do with the courts.
Maybe let me add context to it.
Yes.
Because the submission before the committee is the sales of cattle happened. The commissioners or the JANNEH commission didn't receive a report. In fact, they didn't know how it happened. And if you look at the court order that was granted in effect to the sales of the cattle, it ordered the sheriff to do it. And then Gilmer also was a party in the court order. But there was no way that JANNEH commission had a role to play. Exactly. So in hindsight, what I'm asking now is, would you have revisited that order? Or perhaps ensure that in the order that was going to be granted by the courts, the JANNEH commission would be included as a control parameter?
No, it was not our responsibility. We would be going far beyond our mandate. The JANNEH commission could never have done that. The JANNEH commission is an independent commission. It was the court that started the whole process, gave custody of movables to the Registrar General. Now, and of course, Gilmer for the cattle. There was a problem. How do we solve the problem? These cattle are being stolen. That's the report. How do we solve the problem? Should it be done by the court? Should it be done? It has to be either or. It cannot be both. The two cannot overlap. It cannot be both. It has to be either the courts took care of it or the commission took care of it. The commission, out of an abundance of caution, said, okay, let's make an order for the secretary to take care of it, because it seems he says he can, and I had no problem with that. I would have preferred that we left it to the court entirely, but the commission ordered that the secretary could take care of it together with Gilmer, and I had a role as well that they would report to me. The matter went to the court. The court said no. The court was entirely within its jurisdiction, because the case was before the court. It was the court that, dealt with the whole situation first. They said no. Yes, the cattle should be sold, definitely. But the court officers will take care of it. The sheriff, assisted by Gilmer, even the money should be paid to the court. That was the end of it as far as the commission was concerned. So we don't have any jurisdiction to go and say, oh, court, change this. No, 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 no. That would be going beyond our mandate. It was not our responsibility. So, but when it came to the second part, the vehicles, since it's either or, we decided to do the or. That is, leave the courts and just deal with the situation.
Okay, I'll come to the vehicles perhaps, because here what I'm trying to understand is, if you look at the initial order, that is the order of the 22nd of May.
Yes.
It was to make sure that the assets were preserved and to really protect them from dissipation.
Yes.
And eventually, we ended up having the JANNEH Commission. And to a larger extent, that was equally part of the JANNEH Commission's responsibility, not only to unearth the truth as to how those assets were acquired, but part of the responsibility of the JANNEH Commission was also to see how these assets will be preserved against dissipation. Is it by way of telling the state, take control of them? Is it by way of selling them and ensuring that you have money at the bank? But I believe that the sales of this cattle happened at a time when the JANNEH Commission was still sitting. So now, if you look at the cattle sales, they were marked by a lot of irregularities, undervaluations, stealing them, and a whole lot. So now, what I am trying to reconcile here is allowing a process to go. I'm not saying, we know the courts have the final verdict, okay? But what I'm saying here is trying to say the JANNEH Commission does not have any opportunity to even appeal to the court to say, look, our mandate have to do with the preservation of these assets. And now you are selling them. We are not saying that we want to sell them, but in the sales process, we want to have some controls so that we can have an eye into exactly what is happening. Because at the end of the day, the sales were done, you didn't receive a report. In fact, very little of it was highlighted in your report. So in totality, we can't tell how much of it constitute the broader assets value of the former president. Would you like to react to that?
Yes. Let me explain. I think perhaps there's a little bit of a confusion. The whole issue of these assets started as a case. It started as a case filed by the Attorney General, by the government, against the president, based on reports they had that the president had sort of abused his power and accumulated a lot of assets. So they went to court. See, the court had jurisdiction over the issue. What we call the court had a mandate over the issue as it was presented by the government, the Attorney General. And they brought the case under a particular statute, which is the money laundering statute. So the court did not make a preservative order. That is not a preservation order. What the court did was it froze the assets. It froze the assets, meaning by freezing the asset, it means you are preventing the apparent owner, the person who's said to be the owner, you're preventing him from having access. That is what a freezing order does. But if you prevent the owner from having access, you have to put somebody in charge. So what the court did is what the Attorney General applied for. It put 3 entities in charge. It put the Registrar General in charge of movables and property. It put Gilmer in charge of cattle. It put the receiver in charge of companies. It remained frozen by the court, but custody was given to these entities. So these entities were supposed to go, take charge, do whatever they need to do to make sure that these cattle are secure. That's their role. When you do a freezing order and you give custody, that's their role. Because the issue of preservation did not arise. It is assumed that the properties are there. All these entities had to do was go take over these assets and keep them secure until the case is judgment, until the case is finished. If the Attorney General proves his case, then orders will be made. If the Attorney General fails, the assets will be released, the freeze will be lifted, and the assets will be returned back to the owner. Now, I think the government got overwhelmed because this was a big thing. It was not a small thing. Companies, assets, properties everywhere. So the government then decided that, look, the faster route is to set up a commission of inquiry, and that commission will help us prove what former president owned and did not own. So the issue of preservation arose when the commission started, and I wrote to all these entities and I said, give us a report as to the status of your trusteeship. They were trustees kind of. And then Gilmer wrote to say, we did not even take over the cattle because they gave their reasons. The Registrar General wrote and said, yes, we took an inventory, but we know the cattle is being stolen. That is when the issue of preservation arose. Now, there were two choices open to the Attorney General: to go back to the court and say to the court, cattle is being stolen, we need a preservation order, but what we need is to sell them. Go directly to the court. The commission was aware. This has nothing to do with the Attorney General at first. The commission is aware that these cattle are being stolen, but these are the assets we are investigating. If they are all stolen by the time we finish, what would be the point in our investigation? We have an order. We have the power to make an order. So that's where the discussion arose. But we have power, the court has power. What should we do? So we said, okay, we have power. Let's make the order, but let's ask the Attorney General to consult the court. So we made the order. We said to Attorney General, because we as a commission, we cannot apply to the court. We cannot. It's not within our mandate to do that. We said to Attorney General, the best option would be for you, we've made the order, but go and consult with the court. Apply to the court for its approval. Attorney General went, applied to the court. The court said, okay, fine, the cattle should be sold, but why the commission? This is under our jurisdiction. So we have a sheriff department who's appointed under a statute, who is set up to do this very thing, that is sell assets. That's why the sheriff is there, a big part of, in fact, the major part of the sheriff's function is to deal with assets after a case is finished. They should have the capacity to sell, the capacity to advertise. They have a process to follow. So that's fine. So the sheriff was given charge. The commission was happy. Now, but how did the sheriff do it? That's a different story. Has nothing to do with the commission. But when the court takes over, the commission has no place. So it's not for the commission to say, no, let us be part of it. Why? It's not personal. The court has power to do it. They have a setup to do it. They have a sheriff office to do this. This is what they do. So that's why, just to explain, that's why the commission did not have legally the authority to interfere with whatever the court did, and they did not have the power to do so anyway. So we allowed that to take its due course. We expected, because the court has its own process. People who were not happy with what the sheriff was doing and knew about it should have applied to the court. They should have brought it to the attention of the court, and the court would redress it. There is a process where you can challenge what the sheriff does. So if you are not happy, you report it. You don't wait 6 years later, and then you raise it.
Very well, Ms. Bensouda.
Yes.
I think that was indeed elaborative. Now, the final question on the issue of the cattle will be, with reference to paragraph 18 of your statement, where you indicated that the issues of irregularities with regards to the sales of cattle did not arise during the time that the commission was sitting, but indeed, if at all there were reports received during the time of the commission would have taken some steps, and you gave examples, one of which was maybe reporting it to the IGP for investigation. So now, in hindsight, do you think the court's order was practical enough?
Absolutely. It was within the courts are set up in a certain way. And a big part of what they do, they don't just give judgment. Okay, I agree. The case between Mr. Fofana and Mr. Sisi, judgment for Mr. Sisi, you own the house. How is Mr. Sisi going to take the house from you? That's when the sheriff steps in and make sure that they kick you out of the house. Sorry for using that language in such an august house. They take you out of the house and give the house to Mr. Sisi. If you have an argument on a herd of cattle, I own the herd, you own the herd. At the end of the day, the herd is with Mr. Sar. The court makes the order. How are you going to take the herd from Mr. Sar if you succeed? The sheriff goes to Mr. Sar and takes the cattle. The court may say, okay, the fair order is for the cattle to be sold and the money, whatever, the claim. What is going to happen? The sheriff is set up to do that sort of thing. So I was very surprised to hear that the whole thing was, I don't know, from what the evidence I saw in the newspapers, but that is what the sheriff is set up to do, to enforce orders. It doesn't matter what the nature of the property. It doesn't matter whether it's property, whether it's car, whether it's anything. The sheriff is set up to do. And he can be held to account because he's set up as an institution to do just what the court ordered that he should do. So I don't see how the situation could have been mismanaged, because it was within this is what he's supposed to do. That's what the sheriff's office is supposed to do. So if they did it well, kudos. If they didn't do it well and there are problems, they should answer for it. It's such a simple, straightforward thing for me.
Yes, and that's why I'm asking about the question of practicality. Because indeed, if you look at the sheriff's order, it was not only the court's order, it was not only the sheriff, but Gilmer also had a role to play.
Yes.
Okay, but at the end of the day, it didn't happen that way. And if I make reflections on about paragraph 18, I still keep questioning myself whether indeed the commission should have been part of it. Because you've clearly indicated that if the commission was aware of the irregularities, you would have done something. You know, so now the question is, who would have informed the commission, or who should have informed the commission?
Any person who's aggrieved. You know, the courts work in a special way.
Yes.
Courts, when you have something else.
Yes. You know, in this case, the court made an order, and the parties were expected to implement that particular order. Okay, and 6-7 years down the line, we realized that, in fact, all of those parties have faulted in the execution of that order. But there was one critical element, one critical setup we could have relied upon, and there was no way that they could be informed, because the cattle sales, the proceeds and whatnot should have been an integral part of the JANNEH Commission report. Indeed, you've made reflections on it, but it was very minimal because you didn't receive reports. You couldn't quantify it. The sales proceeds, there was no way that you could discuss about it. So just finally on it, I want us to draw closer on it. On hindsight, do you believe that some control mechanisms should have been in place to ensure that the JANNEH Commission had hands on all the assets that were connected to the former president? In specific terms, the cattle in this case.
No, it was not possible. This whole thing started as a court. The court had a mandate. The only way you can challenge the mandate of a court is to appeal to a higher authority. When the court decides, it has decided. If you don't agree, you appeal to the Court of Appeal. Now, we were not part of the case. It's the Attorney General's case. We made an order and said to Attorney General, well, we've made this order, or the commission made the order and said to the Attorney General, this order has been made, but consult with the court. Seek the court's approval. We couldn't, because that's not how commissions work. The Attorney General sought the court. The court has a discretion. The court doesn't do what anybody says. The judge had a discretion and that is the way he exercised his discretion. There was nothing the commission could do, absolutely nothing. If the Attorney General did not like the way the court handled it, they could have appealed, but that's all they could have done. But that would be another process, and meanwhile the cattle are disappearing. But there was nothing on the face of it. Let me say, as I said, there's nothing on the face of it wrong with what the court ordered. How it was executed, those who are accountable should be held accountable. But there is no, in hindsight, really, nothing could have been done that wasn't done. And let me also say that the order by the commission to preserve these assets was incidental. It was not the core mandate of the commission. The commission's core mandate was to investigate ownership of all these assets. But the order that, well, look, these assets are disappearing, that's an incidental power that the commission has to make interim orders. And they utilize that power to say, look, take care of this situation. But it was not within their core mandate.
So it's your submission that you were indeed, the commission was satisfied with the court order?
The commission had no objection to the court order. And even if it did, there was nothing it could do about it.
Of course, you could have advised MOJ to make an appeal.
To appeal?
Yes.
It was not our place to do that.
You couldn't have
advised As far as
MOJ.
the commission is concerned, let somebody take care of these assets before they disappear. So since the court was taking care of it, the court is a court. There's nothing we can do. That's fine.
Yeah, but we had the main reason.
And let me add, I cannot recollect anyone making a complaint to the commission that, oh, this sheriff is not executing this whole thing properly. I can't remember it. If they did, it would be rumor. It would not be formally. Certainly, there was no complaint to me as counsel that, this is happening. Nothing I received. So if there is, but you know, it's been 7 years. I would like to see it. But there was no complaint that I remember receiving during that period that the sheriff did not do his work properly.
Ms. Bensouda, with due respect, did you read my notes? Because that's going to be my next question.
Ah.
Then elaborate further on it. Because I will still ask the question.
Okay, the court made an order. It was to be executed by the sheriff. But if a complaint had come to the commission that something was going wrong in the sales or whatever, the commission at minimum would have brought it to the attention, made an order to, if it will send investigators firstly. It will send the investigators to go and verify that indeed the complaint has merit. And if the complaint had merit, then there are things the commission could do. But bring it to the attention of the Attorney General for action to be taken. Bring it to the attention of IGP for police investigations to take place. It could do something. But at the end of the day, the commission, that was really the court's problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ms. Bensouda. I mean, now we understand that the commission was really satisfied with the court order, and eventually other people had responsibilities to play. Although we equally understand that after the end of the entire process, maybe 6-7 years down the line, the reports that are coming out now are not pleasant news to the commissioners and even the lead counsel.
Perhaps the National Assembly should have been monitoring the situation. We all have our oversight, and the National Assembly failed also in its oversight to monitor what was going on.
Very well. We'll have that as part of our recommendations.
Okay.
And we'll probe into that issue, and be rest assured, if at all there is anything that the National Assembly can do differently, we would definitely do that. You've seen indications of that in your submission, and then you'll be given the opportunity to elaborate on that. But my final question will be on the landed properties. And to do that, Secretariat, I would ask that you hand over Volume 3 to the witness. Volume 3 of the JANNEH Commission report. And the question will be specific to Fajara South Atlantic, which you can find on page 29.
Volume 3.
Volume 3. And equally, if you have the receiver's report, that is Alpha Capital, of the landed properties, phase 1, phase 2, specifically phase 3, it should be a single sheet. Do you have that? The list of the landed properties in phases from the receiver Alpha Capital. Yes. Okay, maybe we can continue, Ms. Bensouda, whilst they look for that record. Ms. Bensouda, according to paragraph 14 of your statement, which I will read for you in full, it indicates that regarding properties, the Commission identified over 200. Those purchased by the former president from third parties using public funds were recommended for sale. In contrast, properties that were granted to him by government list were recommended to be cancelled, and for the lands to be referred to the state for public purposes or planning, where people claim that their properties were taken from them at undervalue through the sheriff's office. The Commission examined each complaint individually. If the purchase was funded from the state resources, the Commission recommendations were simple. If the complainant refunded the public funds used to acquire the property, they could reclaim it. And that's where I'm taking cue from.
Okay.
The Fajara South Atlantic.
Yes.
If you look at volume 3, page 29 of the JANNEH Commission report.
Yes.
It indicates that the leasehold property lease number indicated dated on the 11th of June 1985. The previous owner's name is as well indicated. It says the property was sold to KFF by Ajib pursuant to a judgment of the High Court against the previous owner, whose name is indicated as the mortgagor, in favor of the bank as mortgage. The judgment also gave the bank conduct of the sales of the property. It says the property was sold by the bank and assigned to KFF by deed of assignment, SR number indicated, dated 8 August 2008. So now, if you look at the report of the receiver, Mr. Alpha Capital, this particular property is among the returned properties to their original owners. So I want us to help this committee understand, how does this property qualify to be among properties to be returned to their original owners?
Well, the Commission finding is clear as page 29. The conclusion is that the property is vested in KFF, which means the property belongs to KFF. However, if you come to the general recommendations of the Commission, it found as a fact that the former president had was responsible for a significant amount of money, some 300 and something thousand euro, if I remember, dollars and so on. So the general recommendation was that properties that were still vested in KFF, you know, the conclusion says vested in KFF. So the general recommendation was properties that were still vested in KFF, in the president, in any of his companies, should be sold, and the proceeds set off against the amount the Commission found that the president owed to the states. That was the final recommendation. So I don't know anything about Fajara South Atlantic after that. So I don't know how it came to be returned. That is not part of the Commission, what the Commission did. The Commission concluded that the property was properly bought by KFF, Kanilai Family Farms. But then that was the conclusion at page 29. But then there's another conclusion which said the president owed this amount of money. All properties, including this one, should be sold, and the money set off against what the president owed. So that is where it stopped at the Commission. Anything that happened after that is not part of the Commission's work.
Yes, very well then. And that's where we need your guidance. because the commission set the
My
parameters.
guidance.
Yes, absolutely. You set the parameters, the benchmarks.
The commission, yes.
Yes, you said. You are the one who set the benchmark. So we want to understand whether indeed, after presenting the situation surrounding the acquisition of this property by the former president, and after the commission making a conclusion that the property was legitimately acquired by the former president, should this property qualify to be returned to the original owner as per the return rules that were set by the commission?
The commission didn't make such a recommendation, but I don't know how it came to be returned. So I cannot really go into something I don't know anything about. But what I can say is that the commission did not make any recommendation that this property be returned to the owner. It's quite clear from page 29. The commission's finding is the property belonged to Kanilai Family Farms, that's KFF. But I also know that as a general recommendation, there was a finding that the president owed this amount, an amount of money to the state, and that all his assets, that in respect of which there was no specific recommendation, like leases cancelled, for instance, some leases were cancelled. So all these properties were then forfeited to the state. Anything that he owed was forfeited to the state, and the state should have sold and set it off against the money that he owed. So, and any balance, of course, would have to be returned to him. But as I say, I cannot really help you, assist you in terms of how it then was returned to the owner.
Yes, Ms.
There might be something somewhere, but not certainly. Volume 3 covers all properties, and this property is as stated, belongs to KFF, so I'm not aware of any other recommendation.
But would it be right to say that any authority who would have acted with regards to returning properties to original owners should have done so in accordance to the guidelines that were set up by the commission? Would it be right to say that?
The commission did not set up any guidelines to that effect.
Then help us understand paragraph 14 of your statement.
Okay.
Where you said that the commission's recommendation were simple. If the complainant refunded the public funds used to acquire the property, they could reclaim it. If the matter was in the court, the commission left it to the courts to decide. Every such property is documented in volume 3 of the commission's report.
The claimants were claims made to the commission. This property, page 29, this property at page 29, it falls under a section called, let me see. That section is called Landed Properties Acquired by Purchase by Ex-President.
Yes.
You will find at page Properties with Third-Party Claims at page 274. Yes. So all the properties in which third parties made a claim before the commission are what is set out in this chapter 7.
Good.
So it means that that property at page 29 did not make a claim to the commission.
Perfect.
So that's why it doesn't form part of properties with third-party claims.
Perfect.
So these are the ones that I'm referring to at paragraph 14 of my statement. That for properties that had third-party claims, they were treated in a certain way. But for properties that were an absolute purchase by the president, there was no claim. It meant that the owner did not make any claim to the commission. So whatever claim that was made was after the commission submitted its report.
Yes, and Ms. Bensouda, thank you for that response, because the report we received from the receiver is the property is returned to the original owner.
I'm sure he has his reasons, but it has nothing to do with the commission.
And those reasons should have been based on the recommendations of the commission, right?
Sorry.
whatever response you take, I would take that as a closure. Those reasons of the receiver. Okay.
The commission made a recommendation. The receiver was appointed after the commission by the government. He must have his TOR. And I know perhaps people made claims afterwards. It's possible. But one has to look at it again in that context. It has nothing to, in other words, whatever Alpha Capital did has nothing to do with the commission. So what he was doing depends on his terms of reference. I don't know. I've never seen his terms of reference. I've never seen the terms of his receivership and what he was receiver of. If he was receiver to implement the recommendations of the commission, then that's what the receiver should do. But I don't know. So to be honest, I cannot make
No, maybe I'll add context to this. In the report, you made reference to page 274, where you highlighted the properties that had third-party claims.
Yes.
And in those claims also were supposed to be determined and a closure would be made.
Yes.
And then in the receiver's report, you realize that some of those properties with third-party claims are listed on the properties that are returned to their original owners, where this particular property also is listed. And this is where the question is. We are not saying the original owner do not have the right to go and buy it, but why is preference given to the original owner when the property in question was legitimately acquired by the former president, and there were no claims on the property made to the JANNEH Commission? We will respect it if you do not want to.
Well, I don't want to speculate, but let me just clarify that all these properties were supposed to be sold for the JAMMEH government to recover money from the president.
Perfect.
Now that process of sale is what I understand was given to the receiver, Alpha Capital. So that's all I understand.
And in the process of sales, all of the properties were open to competitive bidding, open bidding. But the properties that were supposed to be returned to their original owners, where claims were made, the original owners were given preferences and only asked to return the value that was being paid by the former president. So the question the committee wants answers to is, should that preference be given to this original owner?
Well, you're asking the wrong person.
Thank you very much.
You lawyers are very careful.
I
don't have all the facts, so I will not venture any opinion on this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bensouda. Yes. Chair?
I appreciate the questions.
Thank you. So, Ms. Bensouda, I have only one question with regards to the issue of just a bit more clarification on the issue of the cattles. Now, if you look at the report, what was reported, the report that we have seen, and of course submission from the registrar, the former registrar general, under whose custody the cattles were, were given. As part of the commission, when you reported, like you said, cattles were missing. Now, when that report came, did the commission do any investigation to understand how those cattle were missing? Because we were told that cattle were missing. I mean, about 400 cattle were slaughtered. Did the commission do any inquiry on that to understand exactly how it happened?
No, the commission relied on the Registrar General, who had custody and was in charge. No separate investigations were conducted as to how the cattle became missing. And the investigators that were sent certainly did not have that capacity, really, to be honest. But the correct answer is no. No investigations were done. We accepted the statement that cattle were missing and worked on it.
All right, that's fine. Thank you. JAMMEH, you have a question? We are running out of time. I think today is Juma. I was thinking maybe you either start, but then at some point we'll have to stop at 1:30 for Friday press.
Very well.
Or we break and come back. I don't know. You want to start and then we can break at 1:30. It depends on.
I know members of the committee had questions. I was thinking maybe we could have been done with the witness before we go for JAMMEH, but seeing the time now, perhaps we continue to 1:30, so that when we do come back, it will not take a lot of time.
Then we can start with Honorable JAMMEH. At least by 1:30, I'll stop, and then we can go for break. Thank you.
Yeah, just notify me 5 minutes
Sure.
to that time. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ms. Bensouda, for being with us for the past days. My first question would draw us to your statement on clause 12.
The witness statement, huh?
Yeah, the witness statement.
You have it.
Paragraph 12 or clause 12.
Yes.
Think which is about the National Assembly itself. And as a young parliamentarian, I would definitely appreciate to understand what you meant by that statement, more especially being disappointed about the National Assembly in terms of understanding the in-depth report of the white paper.
Thank you for asking that question. Perhaps you are preempting what I was going to say at closure, I think. Now, the Constitution created 3 arms of state, and this is the executive, the judicature being the courts, and the National Assembly. And the Commission of Inquiry that was issued over JAMMEH and his assets and dealings with government institutions was perhaps the most important commission that the Gambia has ever had to, any president had ever had to issue. Because it was a commission that dealt with a situation that spanned from 1994 to 2017. So it should have been the most consequential in terms of its outcome and how that outcome fed into the transition. And we all Gambians agreed that there needed to be a correction, a course correction. So I would have expected that the National Assembly, and I think not I, but the National Assembly ought to have in its role as the most important supervisory organ of states, ought to have set up right from the get-go, as soon as the commission finished and submitted its recommendation, and the recommendation was available, the reports were available, they ought to have set up some sort of process that would supervise, that would read the reports, the recommendations, the findings and recommendations, and look at the white paper that the president issued, and determine and supervise within their own jurisdiction, supervise the process that then emanated from the outcome of the commission's work. So the commission finished, submitted its report, the president issues a white paper. There was no accountability as far as the white paper was concerned. There was no one to determine why the president accepted some recommendations, did not accept some. The steps that the president decided that it mapped out in the white paper that it was going to take to implement the report, there was no oversight there. After that, when the implementation of the white paper also started, there was no oversight. There was no oversight. The things that are being discussed now, what happened to properties, what was done 7 years ago, ought to have been done. And the only institution that could have properly done so is the National Assembly. So these reports, to be honest, it would appear that they were not read. the Commission of Inquiry made hundreds of recommendations. And to me, the recommendations were more important than the adverse findings against individuals that were dealt with somewhat. The recommendations were what was supposed to help the transition, help the country correct its course, avoid the mistakes that were made. So if there is a report that assets, cars, cattle, and vehicles were dealt with improperly, by all means, it should be investigated. But that should not be the core of what, to my mind, this august body should be doing. These reports are 9 volumes. Embedded in these reports are important recommendations. I think it was the National Assembly's duty to have taken the necessary steps, and perhaps we would not have reached this stage 6 years later, because it's easy to correct. You know, in law we have what is called limitation. There is a time limit to pursue someone in terms of civil matters. Criminal, perhaps that is open, but there is a time limit, and with time people forget. With time things get lost. Investigating whether vehicles were properly sold 6, 7 years ago, really, it's a difficult task. But for me, that's a distraction. The main issue is the recommendations. What about the land? This is volume 3. There are so many recommendations, that especially in relation to leases. The leases should be cancelled. So many leases cancelled, and the land revert back to the state for planning purposes. That the state should plan this land, because we have resource constraints, and land is a problem. But you find that most of the empty land that I recognize have been dealt with by the Commission are being built on. So what is it? How? Why? How come the Commission's recommendations were not followed in relation to some of them? So what is happening? So I think perhaps we are trying to, I think I appreciate this committee and what the National Assembly is doing. And in this paragraph, what I'm saying is that it is too little too late. And the National Assembly should ensure that it puts in place the right framework for ensuring that commissions of inquiry that are so important should be the outcome of commissions of inquiry, and how the government deals with the outcomes of commission of inquiry should be under the supervision of the National Assembly. That's what I mean by this paragraph.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to follow up, do you want to say, in the process of the implementation of the white paper, the government of the day has failed in totality, and also the National Assembly has also failed in their responsibility?
I'll start with the last. I say the National Assembly failed in its responsibility to supervise the executive. Now, I don't like to use the term fail, because a Minister of State went on the air and was asked, and he said the Commission had failed the nation. I was disappointed to hear that statement, because it showed that there was no understanding in the government, no understanding of what the Commission is about. And perhaps, even though we are short on time, what I would like to do, I think, is refer to a certain passage in the judgment of the Supreme Court, where the court explained what a commission of inquiry is and is not. And in that passage, the court clearly said, I have it here, it's just 1 minute, and I'll read it. The court said, the commission is not a lawmaking body. It has no legislative powers and does not fall within the legislature. It is an investigative fact-finding body which makes findings and recommendations that are subject to the approval of the government. While the Commission has a duty to act fairly, impartially, and independently, it is nonetheless not an adjudicatory body. It is not a court of law, superior or otherwise. The final outcome of its work is determined by the President. It is not a creature of statute with a separate, distinct legal personality of its own, but solely a creation of the executive. It has a finite lifespan, and once this assignment is completed, it is functus officio and ceases to exist. All these features combined, taken together, lead the court to the conclusion that the commission is part and parcel of the executive government of the Gambia. That is what the court said. So the government cannot disown the commission. The commission worked for the government and submitted its report to the government. The government becomes wholly, entirely responsible for the commission's recommendations and for implementing it. It becomes solely responsible for anything that the commission did as per its report and handed over to the government. So the government issued a white paper accepting some recommendations, rejecting some recommendations. Mostly it accepted the recommendations. But in terms of following up and implementing those recommendations, there has been a major failure. Instead of the report as was expected by some of us when we accepted the assignment, because this was a period when everybody was excited. So things have gone wrong and Gambia needed to course correct. And I, for one, was proud to be part of the process, but heartily disappointed in the fact that the recommendations of the commission, in relation to people findings, that's a distraction. Individuals being taken to court, their things, that is not what is important. What is important is for us to correct our system, to correct our institutions, to make sure we course correct. And there has been a major failure on the part of government to do that. That's where the failure is.
I want to just a bit correct that statement to say I think as part of the process to initiate the National Assembly Select Committee is actually to help correct those errors. And reflecting on the past as well, you may be aware that the National Assembly also has various select committees, including the Human Rights Committee. And I want to believe in the process of the oversight, the issue of the JANNEH Commission was never taken light by the National Assembly. And I can recall as well, when the JANNEH Commission, in fact, for the third or fourth time, wanted to seek for an extension, and the then minister needed to come before the National Assembly to seek for funds, he clearly wrote back to the commission informing them that he don't think he could go back to the National Assembly, that is to say to the plenary, to seek for funds in order to give an extension to the JANNEH Commission for the fact that the National Assembly, as much as they were in support of the process of the JANNEH Commission, were also concerned as to where taxpayers' money was going. So at some extent, I want to believe, yes, the National Assembly were actually doing their job, considering the procedures or processes that involves or evolves around the work of the National Assembly. However, still looking at failure, don't you think it even started from the word go? And this would lead me to another question. That is to say, why was it that the commission or your supervisory office never followed up with the Ministry of Justice seeking for the report of the Sheriff Division on the cattle than just letting it go like that?
Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that a committee was set up, even though 7 years later, to investigate the assets. But the assets are not just cattle and vehicles. The more important assets were the land, And I'm not sure, but I have not been following. What I expected was that there would be focus on the land. What happened? All these spaces, what happened to them? What happened to all the land that were confiscated from JAMMEH? That's what I think is the more important issue. Now, also, I appreciate the fact that even though late, this committee is being set up as a way of, I think, the National Assembly at least being alive to the fact that they do have a role when it comes to commissions of inquiry, that when the commission finishes its work, before the commission finishes its work, certainly it doesn't have much to do. But when the commission finishes it, taxpayer money is used, the commission submits its recommendation at the end of its work, then their supervisory role ought to kick in to see what the executive does with the report. One, first, to find out what it is that the commission, the outcome of the commission's work. What is it that the commission found, and what are these recommendations? Are there recommendations that the National Assembly itself should look at? Because if you look at the commission's recommendations, some of them have legislative implications. So the National Assembly should check and see these recommendations, which of them can we take on? Which committee can actually take over, look at the recommendation and actually implement it? What role can we play? That's what I'm talking about. In terms of during the process and supporting the commission and providing money, that's routine. That is just housekeeping. But its role in terms of the recommendation of the commission, that's major. Now going back to the cattle, as I have explained, the commission has no authority over the courts at all whatsoever. Yes, perhaps we could have written to the sheriff, but we did write to the sheriff, in fact, asking for his report. And the report, up to the time I think we closed, if I recollect, was not forthcoming. But there wasn't anything we could do. The commission was inundated, it was busy, it was hurrying to finish. So really, it really didn't have much to do. There wasn't anything, in fact, it could do. We would have loved to have the report and included it. But I'm sure the commissioners would have. But in hindsight, as you're fond of saying, it was very good we did not have, because we wouldn't have had time to investigate whether the report was correct or not, whether the work was properly done or not. So in hindsight, it was good that we never had the report, because we didn't have the ability to go and check whether the report was accurate or not.
For me, I would believe that that should be the starting point. For the fact that the commission took over from the sheriff division in terms of the cattle.
No. We didn't take over from the sheriff division. The sheriff division took over, and that was the end of it.
And they did the sales.
Yeah, the sheriff division did the sales.
But you reported on the sales of the cattle.
No.
Who reported on the sales of the cattle?
I don't know who reported here on the sale of the cattle. It must be the sheriff.
It must be the sheriff.
Once the court ordered in December 2017,
yes,
that the sheriff would take care of the sale, Gilmer will help the sheriff value the cattle, and the money will be paid in the courts. That was it. The commission finished with the issue of cattle. Commission never considered the issue of cattle again.
But I want to believe it forms part of the mandate of the commission to investigate on the cattle as well, as you were investigating on other matters.
No, the mandate of the commission was up to 21st. Is it 21st January 2017?
Yes.
Anything that happened up to that date is our mandate. The sale of the cattle was different. It was just the commission saying, look, make sure these cattle are not stolen. Let's do something to make sure cattle are not stolen. The court says they would do it. So it was the responsibility of the court to take care of the situation. It was no longer the responsibility of the commission.
Yeah, but having the commission as well, engaging the office of the sheriff, telling them that they should ensure the sales take its due process.
Oh. We could not do that. We did not have power to interfere with the court's jurisdiction. Even if we attempted it, the court will ignore us and reprimand us.
But what were you doing here in ensuring that the sales of the cattle actually takes its due process?
It was no longer our responsibility. It was no longer our responsibility.
Okay. Now I want to take you on paragraph 13.
Of my statement?
Of your statement.
Okay.
It is said that for the second paragraph, those against whom findings were made, including international companies involving millions of dollars, had the right to go to court. What became of those cases remains unclear, as no one followed up. I recall instances where findings were made against companies abroad, such as the Switzerland-based firm, and the government had intended to pursue because this fraud and dishonesty were alleged. 6 years later, people are still chasing cattle and vehicles. I seems to like that part. Ignoring far more important matters in the report that deserve urgent attention from the National Assembly.
Yes.
Could you kindly guide this National Assembly, aside from, let's say, the cattle, the vehicles, and the lands, which is the properties, what other matter do you think was of relevance that either the National Assembly do not take seriously, or they should really pick up and ensure there was sanity?
Okay, now this is a critique, definitely. What my submission to the National Assembly is that all 9 volumes contain recommendations. And there are some international companies that against whom findings were made. And one of them, this Swiss-based company, is called MGI. And they were responsible for the gateway. It was easy for, after the report was submitted, I understand, of course, people against whom adverse findings were made, many of them challenged the report. And mostly, I believe it was those based in Gambians who challenged the report because they were more vulnerable. And those international companies against whom findings were made, who were here, also, perhaps. But there was this particular company, MGI, that was based in Switzerland, against whom recommendations were made. But what happened? So what was the outcome of those recommendations? They were supposed to pay millions to Gambia government. You can look at the recommendations in 9 volumes. Each volume has recommendations at the end. So, I mean, these were the more important recommendations.
That will take us to volume 5 later.
Cattle, cattle, vehicles, yes, important, because we cannot allow people to misappropriate anything or commit fraud and get away with it. That's for sure. But really, that is not what the commission was about. The commission was about things that happened pre the cutoff date, which is 21st January 2017. Who was involved? What damage was done? What damage was done to the economy? How can we course correct? That was the more important thing. I mean, so I think when we talk about assets, there were more substantial assets. And this is, I think, what we should be interested in. When you talk about findings, there were international companies against whom findings were made. Where is the report about? What happened? What happened to those companies? I've never heard again what happened in the case of MGI Switzerland. I've never heard of, anyway, this is what I'm alluding to, that there are more important issues.
So just to enlighten us further, aside from MGI, or MJI, if I may be right here, which other company or asset outside the Gambia, let's say an offshore asset, for example, or an offshore account, were ignored after the work of the commission that you think requires genuine attention?
I highlighted the case the company in Switzerland, and I identified as MGI because that's what certainly came to my head, if I may say so, when I was writing this report. But off the cuff, I cannot really name any company. The recommendations are there. I'm inviting you all to go through the recommendations of the commission. The recommendations are there.
No, to be honest with you, Ma, we have been reading these recommendations.
Good.
But again, not every other Gambian has the opportunity to read through the recommendations. However, having you before us, I believe, you could also guide this committee and the Gambian at large to understand some of the recommendations that were embedded in the reports, to better understand and also, if need be, find better solutions to address these problems.
I'd have to read the recommendations again, and I wasn't expecting that question, to do justice to that question, but my testimony really was to draw attention to what was important. Given time, certainly I could do that, but I don't want to be cherry picking through the report on recommendation. I don't think that would be fair. The recommendations are before you. I think you should look at them and identify what is important. I'm not sure you have a mandate to go beyond what you're doing. Certainly in terms of property you do, in terms of companies and so on, I am not sure. But as I said, these reports are easy to read, and the commission had done a job. These three fine gentlemen and women have done a great job of really making recommendations that could have been a game changer had they been implemented. But sitting right now, it's difficult for me to just take you through 9 volumes and say, look at this recommendation, look at this recommendation. So
that is fair enough.
You know, with respect, thank you.
And as the work of a parliamentarian is continuity, I still want to believe that the National Assembly, as part of their oversight, should still have the mandate to continue holding the executive to account. So basically, I want to believe we still have the mandate to continue on our oversight and also holding the executive to account. We can still progress, Ms. Bensouda. Okay, time, huh?
Yeah, I think at this point it's very convenient for us to go out for break, for Juma prayers, and come back again we can come back at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock will be fine. Please, after Juma prayers. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.